All right, well, I'll finish up today's show, as I always do on Thursdays, talking about some of the games that we didn't get to here throughout the course of the week, or some of the games that maybe we didn't spend a whole lot of time on. Usually about 15 to 20 minutes doing that, running through a lot of games in rapid-fire fashion here. And just some quick thoughts once again on the Thursday night games. Georgia Southern and Appalachian State. This line just keeps coming down. App State now a 15-point favorite in this game. My line on this one is in the 17 range. So at this point, maybe a little bit of a lean towards Appalachian State. But again, some sharp money coming in there on Georgia Southern in that matchup. West Virginia and Baylor. This line's starting to come up a little bit now. My number 21.5. I've got a video preview over on our Bang the Book YouTube page for that West Virginia and Baylor game. So head on over there, check that out for my thoughts on the matchup. Navy and UConn Friday night. Navy 27 or 27.5 point favorite. I may end up with a UConn ticket here in this one, kind of waiting for 28 in this game. My number is 26.5 or 26, excuse me. So I'm not far off from the market. I'm right there on the opener, but UConn's looked a little bit better here. I think they're maybe a little bit more engaged at this point in time than they have been, certainly dating back to last year. They've looked a little bit better offensively. They've found a running game. And because they've found that running game, I think there's an opportunity for this to be a running clock type of affair. Obviously, you have that Navy triple option. Navy's got some bigger games coming up. Malcolm Perry seems to be banged up week in and week out. I think if Navy gets a lead here, they may kind of sit on it a little bit. 3 yards in a cloud of dust type stuff. I think UConn can possibly stay within the numbers. So if we get to 28 on this game, standalone Friday night game, why the hell not? May have a little bit of a pizza bet on that one. And again, I'm not talking Chicago deep dish. I'm not talking about, some sort of, nice local pizza place. I'm talking one of the macro chains type kind of pizza money on that Friday night game up in stores. Looking at the rest of the Saturday card here, looking at some of the games we didn't touch on over the course of the week, I think NC State and Wake Forest is kind of an interesting game because the line only 7.5 here for an NC State team that's been a disappointment. I don't think they've looked very good most of the year. Dave Doran just can't seem to figure out who he wants to play at quarterback. My line on this game is actually Wake Forest minus 11. So from a power rating standpoint, I am looking at the Demon Deacons here. But again, not just this line, but the fact that it hasn't moved and the fact that we've got a little bit of extra juice at some books out there on NC State does give me a lot of pause about Wake Forest. Now, NC State, again, the quarterback questions, the quarterback concerns, they have not looked very good offensively over the course of the season, but just about everybody has looked good offensively against Wake Forest. So you kind of have, that age-old question of does the bad offense beat the bad defense, or does the bad offense allow the bad defense to look better? Again, my thoughts on the game would be a lean to Wake Forest, but power ratings are a guide, and maybe I could have done something early in the week, grabbing a number, something like that. But because this line has not moved closer to my number, something is off within my power ratings. If you're off on games, but they move towards your number, that's okay. If you're off on games and they move against you or they don't move, that's not okay. And this is an early kickoff with a Wake Forest team that, has been in and around the top 25 this year. They score a lot of points. They're a sexy type of team. Maybe there's sharp money kind of lurking to take NC State, or maybe this line's just not going to move. But again, those context clues, very, very important out there in the marketplace. And even though I have an overlay, what I'm seeing with this game is going to keep me off of the Wake Forest side. Game 319, 320 here, Nebraska and Purdue. Nebraska up to a 3.5 point favorite out there in the market. Now, my line on this game is Purdue minus 0.5 point, but I have no interest in either one of these teams. I don't trust either one of them with my money. Jack Plummer looked good for a couple weeks, was absolutely awful last week. Nebraska, not a good showing for them once again. Noah Vedral, just not the guy. We'll see if Adrian Martinez is back this week. Frost has been very tight-lipped about injury updates. Maybe this line move suggesting that Martinez is coming back. I have no interest in either one of these teams or this game here this week. So no opinion from me on that one. 321, 322, Houston and UCF. And I was dead wrong about the Cougars last week. They gave it their all against SMU, made that game very, very close. SMU did squander some opportunities early in that game to possibly put that one away. But credit to Houston. As much as we've seen a lot of negativity from Dana Holgorsen and a lot of negative sentiment out there in the media, Houston's still playing. They're still going out there and trying. This week, they're completely outgunned against UCF. Dylan Gabriel's been very, very good for the Knights. And even in that game that UCF lost to Cincinnati, they outplayed the Bearcats for the majority of that game. Turnovers were a big factor in that one. The line here is UCF minus 21.5. My number on this game is UCF minus 26. So I do like UCF in this one a little bit, not crossing any key numbers. There are no key numbers really in that scenario there. But I do like UCF a little bit. Early kickoff. Houston is on some extra rest, so there is that. But I just think UCF just has too many weapons, too much firepower. And again, if their only loss is to Cincinnati and they can do very well across the board otherwise, well, you wonder if they're a player for that New Year's Six bowl game, especially as kind of an homage and a hat tip to how good they've been here over the last few seasons. Northwestern and Indiana. Indiana, an 11-point favorite at home. Northwestern was on them last week in the Nugget against Iowa. They were getting double digits in a low-scoring affair. They get shut out. They couldn't score. Northwestern's offense is a train wreck. I don't know how that gets any better here against Indiana. Iowa's defense is better than Indiana, but Northwestern just isn't really scoring on anybody here this season. So Indiana, who has looked pretty good offensively, Kalen DeBoer, the former offensive coordinator at Fresno State, doing a great job here with both of the quarterbacks in Penix and Ramsey. If anything, I'd look Indiana here, but my number's 10.5. I don't have too strong of an opinion on that one. One thing we did mention throughout the week, Akron and Bowling Green, and again, I will remind you, I'm on Bowling Green in this game. 6-point favorite, my number 9.5. I get the sentiment to be worried about Bowling Green in that favorite role, but I don't think people have realized just how awful Akron is. And I know they're 0-8. I know we talked about the, 122-1 or 121-1, whatever it is, with their full game first half and second half. This team is that bad. And Bowling Green has at least shown some signs. So I'll back Bowling Green in this one. I may end up paying for it, but I do like Bowling Green in that spot a little bit. 329, 330, Rutgers and Illinois. Illinois much better than any of us thought here this season, including that big upset win over Wisconsin. Rutgers finally gets a dub beating Liberty last week. The question here is, can you really lay that big of a number with Illinois? My number 19, market anywhere from 19 to 20.5. I'm not going to be on this game. I understand the people that may like Illinois a little bit, but this is a definite no play for me. Two very tough teams to kind of get a handle on, in the sense that you wonder what Illinois' ceiling is and you wonder what Rutgers' ceiling is. Obviously, we saw it last week against Liberty, but what is their ceiling against an actual team, from a Power 5 conference? I have no idea. 333, 334 here, Boston College and Syracuse. And I think this is a pretty tough handicap as well, because you've got a Syracuse team that can't protect the quarterback. And while Boston College isn't great at going out there and getting sacks and creating negative plays, they've been a pretty good defense historically, to where maybe Syracuse's offensive line is just that bad. Now, Boston College last week did play Clemson. Wasn't a good look for them at all whatsoever. But, Boston College a couple of weeks ago hung 45 points on NC State. So they do have it in them. They can run the football. The problem is Syracuse struggles against the pass, defends the run better. Now, we did see Pitt run on Syracuse a couple of weeks ago. The line has gone up from 2.5 to 3.5 here. My number on the game is Syracuse minus 5.5. So I do agree with the line move, but again, not really a game I've got too much of a strong opinion on, because I don't know if Boston College can move the football through the air. If they become one-dimensional, it makes it much easier for Syracuse. And I don't know if Syracuse can protect the quarterback. So total of 60 in this one. I'd kind of look under the total a little bit for this matchup. I know it's obviously concerning with, the state of the ACC and how inconsistent these teams have been. But again, if I had to look at anything here, I think Syracuse, with the amount of negative plays that they run themselves into because they can't run the football and they can't protect the quarterback, and Boston College having to run the football, I think the under 60, a decent look there in that game up at the Carrier Dome. Let's jump down here to Texas State and Louisiana Lafayette. Lafayette, a 21.5 to 22.5 point favorite in the marketplace. I liked Texas State last week. I was on them against Arkansas State. game didn't really work out for me, but I've got this one 19.5. Check and see what the injury update status is of Gresh Jensen, the quarterback for Texas Tech. They did run quite a bit better of an offense with him. Tyler Vitt came in. It was kind of difficult in that game last week against Arkansas State. Didn't really do a whole lot to move the football up and down the field. Looks like Gresh Jensen is still in concussion protocol. It actually will be Tyler Vitt in that one. So that adjusts my line a little bit, probably up into the 22-point range. So not going to have a play on Texas State here this week. This may be a spot where they just get boat raced by Louisiana Lafayette. Vanderbilt and South Carolina. Again, very important. Even if you don't bet these games, you still want to follow along with them, see what's going on in these matchups. And South Carolina up from 14.5 into the 15 to 15.5, as high as 16 range out there in the marketplace. My number on this game is 17. So again, even though you may not have a play on these games, you want these lines to move towards your numbers. If they don't, you've got to make some adjustments. If they do, even if you're a little bit high on the game, that's okay. Again, maybe you don't want to play that game this week, but in subsequent weeks where you're looking at, some of these games, you're looking at how to value some of these teams, you want to be in line with the market as much as you possibly can. And I can't lay a big number with South Carolina here because Ryan Helinski is not healthy. Brian Edwards is not healthy. Rico Dowdle's out for the year, although Tavian Feaster's looked pretty good at running back. Does Vanderbilt have anything left in the tank? I don't know. A lot of questions about maybe if Jeff Fisher will replace Derek Mason. Could be a thing. I don't know. It's very tough to recruit at Vanderbilt with their academic standards. But again, this is a line moving towards my number. That's the goal. That's what you want. Even if you don't play these games, you want the line moving towards your number. Kansas State and Kansas. I don't know if I'm going to take Kansas, but my line in that game is actually Kansas +2. So seeing it come down is a good thing for me. Even if I don't play it, it means I'm in the right ballpark with my evaluations of these teams and with my power ratings. So again, even if you're not betting a game, pay attention to the line movement if you're somebody who's out there doing power ratings, or even more than that, like we talked about with Marshall and Rice. Rice taking money week after week after week. This week, they're not. What does that tell you? Well, it either tells you that the sharp money is off of Rice, or that they think this is a bad matchup for Rice and like the Marshall side a little bit as that line has come up. So, again, this isn't just about handicapping stats and handicapping games. You're handicapping the market, too. You're handicapping the betting odds. You're looking at the odds screen and handicapping that. That's a very, very important distinction in college football betting. You're not just looking at the games. You're looking at the odds and the movement and the timing of the line moves and understanding which types of groups of people are betting on these games. It's all part of the puzzle, and it's all very important work. And again, that brings me to game 357, 358, UNLV and Colorado State. I was on Colorado State last week, took the 14.5 against Fresno State. They win the game outright. Look at what's happening this week. Colorado State opens a 10-point favorite. It's been bet down to 8 at several shops out there in the marketplace now, with UNLV taking money. UNLV is not a popular team. They have not been a popular team for a very, very long time in a betting context. And again, some of the market movers out in Vegas are jaded about this team because they get so much local coverage. But to see this line coming down with a Colorado State team that won outright as a 2-touchdown dog last week, and also, as we've talked about with Kyle Hunter on our Monday segments, is a positive regression candidate. And money is coming in against them. My line here is Colorado State -5.5. I upgraded UNLV last week because Kenyon Oblad, the quarterback who's come in, gives them more dimension on offense. I don't think UNLV is a good team. I don't think a lot of people think UNLV is a good team. But this is a bad team taking money early in the week from sharp bettors who traditionally are jaded about UNLV. Maybe UNLV isn't the right side in this game. Maybe they wind up losing and getting beaten badly. But those context clues in the market should be enough to keep you off of Colorado State if you were thinking of playing the Rams. And maybe the Rams do get there. And I thought I was higher on the market or in the market than most people on them. Turns out maybe I'm not. So again, if you're not betting these games, you're still looking for things that can give you an edge in future weeks. Mississippi State and Arkansas, 379, 380 here. And this is a game where I've discarded Mississippi State. I've got this one, Mississippi State -5. As bad as Arkansas has been this season, I don't think Mississippi State is a very good team. This line is up from 7 to 7.5. Not to say that I'm going to play it, but simply to say that if Arkansas does win and cover this game, you've got to lower Mississippi State to around the range where I have them. And this is a team I am looking to sell. I will look to sell in some of their remaining games. I'm not going to sell them this week because Arkansas is just that bad. But this is the thing about college football, man. You got varying perceptions out there in the marketplace. And there are sell teams, there are buy teams, there are buy points, there are sell points. And maybe this is a buy point for Mississippi State. If it winds up not being one, you've got your answer about this Bulldogs team. You've got your answer about Joe Moorhead, and you can react accordingly out there in the marketplace. How about game 381-382, Middle Tennessee State and Charlotte? We've seen Middle Tennessee State be a little bit of a sharp darling here over the last couple of weeks. A resounding win last week against FIU. They ran for 480 yards against FIU in that game, I believe. Only 25 passing yards for the Blue Raiders in that matchup. Charlotte, very emotional win for them. Big party in the locker room. Coach taking his shirt off. They were very excited about that victory that they got last week. My number in this game is Middle Tennessee State 2.5, but I do like the Blue Raiders here. I think because you've got two teams in difficult situational spots, you defer to the veteran coach. You defer to Rick Stockstill here in this one over Will Healy. Will Healy trying to build a culture there at Charlotte, and you give him credit for what they've done here so far this season, but I think it's a tough spot for them, a tough sell coming off of that very emotional win. Middle Tennessee State is the side. The line movement suggests that. Looks like we're going to 3.5 here in short order. Middle Tennessee State is the right pick there in that one. 385, 386 here. Arkansas State and Louisiana Monroe. Arkansas State, a 2-point road favorite in this one. I've got Monroe a 1.5-point home favorite. So kind of wondering what I may be missing here about this game. Why money coming in against Monroe? Could be an injury situation that I don't know about. Again, it's very hard to find injury information here in college football without standardized injury reports. Monroe is a team that I think has kind of fallen by the wayside a little bit. This is one of those, it could be like that Troy and Coastal Carolina game that Brad Powers and I discussed in the first segment. People know Arkansas State. They know from when Hugh Freeze was there. They know that this has been a job that's kind of been a springboard to some bigger opportunities for some of these coaches. Now, Blake Anderson has been there for quite a long time, and it does seem like to a degree, and maybe through no fault of his own, maybe this has to do with the time away that he had to have, tending to his wife and her cancer battle. But Arkansas State feels like they've stagnated in a lot of ways. And I wonder if maybe that's just, the same voice 5 years in a row. Yeah, they got that big win over Texas State. Yeah, I was down in the marketplace on Arkansas State a little bit going into that game. But it seems like people have kind of forgotten about Louisiana Monroe. Look, this is a Monroe team that came back against Florida State and lost by a point. Hung around for a little bit with Iowa State before they got blown out. Iowa State just much better than they had played to that point. Should have covered against Memphis. Gave up 14 points in 2 plays, a running play and a pick 6. And yeah, they got trounced by Appalachian State. That's going to happen. I think because Monroe has got some very lopsided losses on their ledger in their last 3 defeats, and people don't like Florida State, that this team has been discarded. I like Louisiana Monroe here. I think Louisiana Monroe is the side. I'm confident in going against the line move. I'm confident in believing in my numbers. I just don't think Arkansas State is a very good team. Defensively, they're not. And I think that this is a spot where Monroe has kind of been forgotten about and discarded because Arkansas State is a premier Sun Belt type of team, and they have been for a while. They're just not that good this year. I think maybe that's kind of been forgotten about in the marketplace here, coming off that Texas State win where there was some sharp money on the Bobcats. So give me Monroe. I like this game. I like this spot. I'll take Monroe. Again, who knows? I could be wrong here. I think the Warhawks wind up being the right side in that one. 387, 388, Miami and Florida State. Florida State, a field goal favorite here against the Hurricanes. I cannot bet either one of these teams right now. Neither one of them worth my money. My line is Florida State minus 4.5, right where it opened. No opinion whatsoever on this game for me. Some teams are just stayaways. Some teams are just so inconsistent, so bad that you just don't want to take them. I don't know what I get from Miami here. I have no trust in Willie Taggart. Complete stay-away game. But remember when this game used to mean something? Remember when this used to be a huge game in college football? Think of how far both of these programs have fallen now. That this game is by and large a throwaway in that 3:30 time slot. New Mexico taking a lot of money here this week against Nevada. The Wolfpack only 3.5-point favorites. My number's 9.5 here, but my God, Nevada's bad. Now, New Mexico's really bad too, but Nevada's a mess right now. No thoughts on this game. I mean, if I had to play it now, I would play the big overlay with Nevada minus the 3.5. Maybe they're better. Maybe they rally here. Maybe New Mexico State is as bad, or New Mexico, is as bad as I think they are. But Nevada they've gone through how many quarterbacks here? They just got trucked by Wyoming. They got beaten badly by a Utah State team. It's been disappointing. Maybe I'm just not up to par with Nevada. Maybe I'm just not where the market is on the Wolfpack. If that's the case, I wind up moving down substantially on them here after this weekend's game. Finally, one more out on the island, degenerate special, Fresno State and Hawaii. Hawaii, a 2-point favorite here. My line, Hawaii -1. It is interesting to see this line coming down with Fresno State taking money off of losing by double digits as a double-digit favorite last week to Colorado State. I figured there would be some anti-Fresno sentiment in the marketplace, and we're not getting that here. And I think that's particularly interesting with this Hawaii team back on the island, with this Hawaii team off of a win over New Mexico. You get Hawaii here. They're 3 losses, and they have given up over 50 points in all of them. Washington, major conference team. Boise State, class of the Mountain West. And Air Force, who just ran that option roughshod over them. Really, outside of that, Hawaii's been pretty impressive. So I'm surprised by this line move. Again, I'm right around the market number with Hawaii -1. Not going to be a play for me. If it winds up being a chase game for you, though, so far, sharp money on Fresno State. I think we probably get some public Hawaii buyback. 2 is probably about where this number winds up sitting. So whatever you decide to do, realize that the 3 that was out there early in the week is now very much gone. We got 2 more items of business left for this week on Bang the Book Radio. That is my Westgate Super Contest selection segment. And Brent, the head risk manager at DSI Sportsbook, ran a little bit long here with today's show, but that'll be our Friday program. Again, that'll be up early Friday once I get that one out for you. So a couple more good segments coming your way here for this week. That'll do it for me. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Have a happy Halloween. Stay safe out there, and I will talk to you again on Friday.